B'Shem Hashem Na'aseh V'Natzliach, Shiur Torah, Bruchim Habayim. We are back doing our Tuesday night series of the IGGERET HAGRA, where the letter from the Gomi Vilna to his family, to us, over a couple hundred years ago, Baruch Hashem, is something that we've been learning week after week to show what the sages meant in the Gemara when they said that the idle conversations of the sages must be studied. Needless to say, they're divrei Torah, as we see that there's an endless amount of Torah that we could learn from the Gomi Vilna's, for all intents and purposes, simple letter to his family. Tonight's shiur will be for Refuah Shlema for Rabbanit Levana Bat Sarah, Rabbanit Sarah Bat Anat, Rav Ephraim Ben Shulamit, Avi Mori David Ben Nesriah, Imi Morati Doris Bat Zora, Orit Bat Ilana, and also for a Atzlacha Rabba for Marsha Bat Julie, Ayla Bat Marsha, Samuel Ben Marsha, Cephas Ben Marsha, Alexander Ben Marsha, Louis Ben Marsha, Shaul Ben Farzane, and Amir Ben Shaheen, Yitro Ben Avraham, Oshri Ben Doris, Gail Ben Doris, Elad Ben Doris, David Ben Nesriah, and all of Am Yisrael and all the righteous Noahides that continue to contribute their time, their money, their skill sets to help us share Torah around the world, Baruch Hashem. So, Baruch Hashem, lots of good things in the development. Today we had a campaign where there's a bunch of different Judaica stores that are signing up to get copies of our book so they could distribute it in their stores for free. So if you have a local Judaica store that's interested, feel free to have them contact us, or they could just simply go to the kiruvstore.org and order themselves a batch of my book. That, Baruch Hashem, is one of the things that's going on today. Also, Baruch Hashem, I got a call from one of the Gedolim of the generation, someone that I've met a few times, and an extraordinary Talmid Chacham, Rav Pinchas Zevichi, Shichyeh, who called me out of the blue. Apparently my book came to his attention, and he's such a humble tzaddik. He was apologizing that he didn't give me didn't know who I was to meaning we knew each other, but he didn't know. After reading the book, he got Baruch Hashem a very different impression. But one of the beautiful things that you see is that someone like him that wrote dozens and dozens and dozens of books, Baruch Hashem, I don't think there's really anybody in a generation that has covered more subjects more extensively than him. And anyone that remembers my personal story, one of the first Sfarim that I got was actually one of his Sfarim years ago about the mitzvah of saying a Kaddish, and also Asher Yatzar. Long story short, to get a call from somebody like that for almost 6 minutes didn't stop giving me chizuk and blessings, and it was a wonderful news, Baruch Hashem, to get. And I first saw his call and I missed his call, kind of felt bad and didn't really feel comfortable calling back. But he actually called me again a couple hours later, just to make sure that he got this done, to give us chizuk, Baruch Hashem, on the things that we're doing. So the book is getting a lot of great feedback in Eretz Yisrael, in the United States. There's also some of them, we're sending out to a couple of other places. We have a now opening to send copies of the book to the UK. So anyone that's in the UK that has a keilah that speaks Hebrew, wants to distribute the book, let us know. We'll send you some. Of course, anyone that could sponsor part of the cost is more than welcome to, but even if you can't, by all means, we still want to distribute the book. So far, about 15,000 copies have been distributed, and Baruch Hashem, it's going good. Aside from that, we have, B'ezrat Hashem, a very big event next week. Next week here in South Florida, lots of people are going to be showing up from not only from Florida but from different places. I believe in New York and a couple of other states are having some people come attend the event. There's also going to be a couple of very, very special stories that were developments that started at the last event. Baruch Hashem. B'ezrat Hashem, anyone that's going to be there is going to be fortunate enough to be the first ones to hear these stories that Baruch Hashem, Kadosh Baruch Hu gave us the merit to benefit from and to be part of. So, with that being said, let's get started. We have the IGGERET HAGRA, the Gomi Vilna. Of course, through his letter, has been teaching us time and time again about the importance of learning Mussar. But as we learned last week, there are many people that have learned Mussar throughout the generations, but not necessarily everybody has had the same impact on their neshama. And you see it yourself when you teach Mussar, and Baruch Hashem, reaching tens of thousands of people around the world. And you don't always see the same impact on different people. In fact, sometimes you see things that don't really make any sense until you learn this Gra's letter, because it's I've seen things that just make you scratch your head. On one end, you see a guy is doing tshuva, goes to yeshiva, learning everything, and decides to take upon himself to rebuke every single person that that he sees doing anything wrong according to his knowledge. What about his own learning Torah? Not so much. He learned some shiurim, but when I asked him, what about learning Gemara? What about learning the halacha? What about learning the other stuff? No, I don't really connect to those as much as I connect to shiurim of yours and some other rabbis. That's I know all of your shiurim by heart. Okay, I tried, discussing these things with him a few times, but unfortunately, sometimes there are certain people that they can call you rabbi all they want, but in reality, you're no different to them than just some stranger on the street, and sometimes even less. And lo and behold, you see some of these type of people end up becoming really a big disaster. Where I in one case, literally, I had this one guy that was a nice young man. Everything was going good. Turned his life around. But at some point or another, the learning that he was doing, instead of making him more humble, made him more arrogant. And the advice that he got him to where he was, he simply decided that he's had enough and he could just work on his own from there. So when I gave him guidance to start learning more Torah and more books, not just the shiurim, and it's time to escalate a little bit, that wasn't exactly an acceptable advice. And there was a couple of times there was tension. But Baruch Hashem, if somebody comes to you with a question, somebody comes to you with anything, you try to do whatever you can to help them. But then you find out that in reality, that this person that's thinks that he's more righteous than everybody else in the world is also a thief, because you have different people that he owes money to contact you and say, listen, I see that he has some of your books and CDs, and perhaps you could influence him to give me my money back. I said, what? Money back? What are you talking about? What does that have to do with me? And you find out all these ugly stories, and you say, what a chilul Hashem, what a desecration of Hashem, that a religious person has, is just unethical, simply unethical. And again, I understand, sometimes people get into a bind, you get into a situation, you lost your job, you lost money, you lost a lot of things, but at the very least, answer the call, explain why you can't pay, explain, I'll pay you back, explain something. Don't just, bounce on people and just leave them hanging, caring less about their situation. And unfortunately, these are the types of unethical behaviors that are typical of people that learn but do not apply. learn but do not have kavana when they're learning, which is actually what the Gomi Vilna was discussing last week, where he told us that God forbid that the reading of the very same Mussar that he was in essence obligating us to learn, God forbid that this reading should be the sole objective. For this reading of Mussar alone does not transform a person. Indeed, there are many people who read Mussar works and they're not transformed. And this is because of what we've mentioned above, that the reading alone does not affect the change in a person, because either this person is reading with just an intent of reading. Okay, it's like a person that's watching a shiur with just the intent of watching a shiur. He's listening to it in the background while he's working, while he's driving, or even if he's watching it at home. Right now, he's watching live on bh.live, and he likes it. He doesn't want the distractions of Facebook and everything else. He's watching it. She's watching it. Everything is good, but 20 minutes after the shiur, somebody does something that they don't like, and they get a nice righty or a lefty, and sometimes a few cuss words to go along with it. Wait, didn't you just watch Mussar by the so-called scary rabbi for 2.5 hours? How did you just behave that way? Or the following day, he decides to just simply destroy one of the people in his office and make them feel bad for the next 5 years because of a few words that no one else knew except from him or her. Or they simply decide to walk around immodest because they figure, listen, I'm doing all the other mitzvot, maybe this one I'm just not going to do. And all types of things that are really strange behavior for someone that is supposedly learning Mussar, which is character development. The best yet is when somebody attends a shiur, attends a lecture, and this has also happened online, but it's obviously not as common unless you have a continuous dialogue, but it's a person attends a lecture, and you see that, as a speaker, for whatever reason or another, the crowd always thinks that the speaker doesn't see anything, when it's actually the exact opposite. The speaker sees everything, and it's actually the speaker's job to notice as much as possible, because you want to see what's impacting people, what's not impacting people. Sometimes you have to segue into something completely unprepared because you see that what you're saying is not affecting them. Sometimes you're seeing that there is something that's touching a nerve, and you either want to press it or you want to run away from it, depending again on what kind of speaker, what kind of crowd. But the point is that the speaker, if you've been a speaker for a long time, you notice everything. The crowd, on the other hand, doesn't realize this and actually thinks that the speaker is completely blind. So you'll see at times, and Baruch Hashem, I've had the merit to see this a few times, where you see somebody, they attend a lecture, and however much time into the lecture, they start looking at their watch, or today, phones usually, looking at the phones for the time. Like they're upset that you're going on. Like, is he going to finish? Does he know Rabbi Chanina? Rabbi Chanina, everybody says Rabbi Chanina, it's at the end of the shiur, you have he doesn't know Rabbi Chanina, you never heard about Rabbi Chanina. And they're waiting for you to finish. In some places, unfortunately, I've seen with my own eyes. Baruch Hashem, for other speakers, because I don't think I would be able to withstand a test, where they actually tell the speaker, listen, Rabbi, why don't you hurry it up? Let's finish. We got to go. The truth is, if you came to a lecture, especially if it's a lecture for Mussar, that means that you agree that you need to develop your character and become a better person. So, rule number 1, have patience and learn how to become a better person by listening to this lecture, by sitting there patiently. But many times people don't see any wrong in themselves. As the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat and many other places says, "En adam roe chova be'atzmo." A person does not see an obligation in himself, and they simply don't think there's anything wrong with it. Why? Listen, he's been speaking already for an hour and a half. Why? What's the problem? I need to go, buddy. If you came to a lecture of Mussar, that means you came to develop your character, and that means that if you're still the same as what you came into, you haven't developed your character yet. You need more time. In fact, so long as you want to leave, the objective of the lecture has not been achieved yet. You are supposed to literally get to a point in a lecture, in a book, in anything that you're learning in Mussar, to a point where you don't want to leave this thing because you're seeing so much good out of it, and it's painful to leave it. But unfortunately, not everybody is as successful as a teacher. Not everyone is as successful as a student. Needless to say, many people don't even know that this is the objective. They'll go into a book in a hurry to finish it, just to tell people that they read another book. They'll go into a lecture in a hurry to finish it. Not really sure what the point of that is, but they're in a hurry to go somewhere else. I don't know, because they're hungry, they want to eat some pizza or something, or they want to sleep. Why'd you come? The whole objective of you coming is to learn. So long as there's learning available, you should be excited to be there. But unfortunately, many people come in to a study session of Mussar and otherwise as well, where they have a intention to listen, but not to apply. I like the way he talks. It agrees with my MO. It agrees with the basics. I like the tone. I like the voice. I like the use of language. I like it. And sometimes even makes me laugh. Sometimes makes me angry. But nonetheless, I enjoy it. Great. Now, if this was some self-help guru, this would be fantastic. But in reality, it's not. This is a vessel to help you go to heaven. Meaning everything is on the line. And so long as a person that is reading a Mussar book, or is attending or listening to a Mussar lecture, does not realize that this lecture could literally determine whether you go to heaven or hell forever, if you don't realize that, then you haven't really put thought into what you're doing. And unfortunately, many times, people listen to lectures superficially, despite the endless amount of times that I've told people, write down the notes, write down the lecture, study it, don't just listen to it. Why? Because when you listen to it, 99.9% of what was said is going to be forgotten, one ear out the other, as if it was never said. You've came in a certain way, you'll leave a certain way. Not much will change. And even the things that you did retain, they're not becoming part of you most of the time, and they'll just end up being forgotten just a few days later when push comes to shove and there's a moment of truth and you're being tested. You're not going to have that tool that you learned on a Tuesday night in your arsenal to use to overcome some obstacle. But when you study a shiur, studying a shiur means that you're putting all of your mind into it. You're trying to review it, whether it requires you 1 or 2 or 3 times, whatever it takes, writing down notes, voice recording, whatever it is that you need to do in order to study. People study in different ways. But after you do all that, you're also delving into the specific things that you highlighted in the book or in the lecture, and thinking about them and figuring out, how can I apply this to my life? Where can I apply this to my life? Just like the Ramban, Nechmanides, told his own son that after you completed learning Torah, the first thing you do after completing your learning of Torah for that day, first thing you do is go and start looking at your life and seeing, where could I apply whatever I learned into my life. Yeah, but sometimes I learn Mussar, sometimes I learn Halacha. Sometimes I learn the weekly parasha. Sometimes I'll learn Ashkafa. Sometimes I'll learn stories about tzaddikim. Sometimes I'll learn something about the different debates of the poskim. Sometimes this, sometimes that. Yes, exactly. Whatever you learn, after you finish learning, look at where you can apply this into your life. And this is one of the mistakes that's done today, where you have a generation where there's an endless amount of information available on a silver platter for people, mostly for free, but most people do not utilize it the right way. And many times when people ask me, as far as if I watch this shiur or that shiur, I always tell them I don't have time to watch shiurim. And it's not necessarily that I don't have the half hour. It's the fact that it doesn't take me a half hour to watch a half hour shiur. if I have to watch a half-hour shiur, if it's, let's say, Rav Ephraim, which is really the only shiurim that I watch anymore, sometimes I'll get to watch other shiurim of other rabbis that I respect. But generally speaking, I'll watch Rav Ephraim shiurim, obviously, and that's my main learning as far as shiurim are concerned. But that half-hour shiur could literally take an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours. It depends on the shiur. But it's definitely not going to take a half hour. And when people hear this, like, why does it take you a half hour? Why does it take you an hour to watch a half hour shiur? You have a lot of distractions? I said, no. 0 distractions. In fact, I have less distractions when I watch shiurim than when I read books or do other things. It's that to study a shiur takes time because you have to see what the Rav says. Sometimes you have to look it up to see what else is said. Sometimes you have to write down what was said in order to commit it to memory, in order to commit it, to engrave it to your neshama, in order to see how it applies to you, in order to see why Kadosh Baruch Hu decided that out of all the words in the world, he decided to have you listen to those words. Surely there's a reason. So it doesn't take a half hour to watch or listen to a half hour shiur if it's a good quality shiur. If it's a rinky-dink shiur, then why are you listening to it in the first place? Then of course it's going to take 10 minutes to watch a half hour shiur because people are in a hurry. They say, oh no, I'm going to watch this shiur at 2 times speed. Yes, I also watch shiurim at 1.5 or 2 times speed, but it still doesn't take that time. Why? Because again, when you study a shiur, it's a world of difference than when you're watching or listening to a shiur. And the Gomi Vilna says that is in essence the difference between somebody that is, listening or reading Mussar versus someone that's studying Mussar. And that in essence is the world of difference between those two types of people, that both will have the information, both have reviewed it, but only one of them applied it. Now, there's, of course, another reason he says that there is people that have the intention to listen to the shiur, to study to the shiur. They have the intention to do it. They wrote down the notes. They try to do whatever they can in order to get a basic understanding, at least, of what's being said in this book or in this shiur, but they still fail. They still fail in their application. They started an animal, they're still an animal. They started a thief and an unethical, they're still a thief and unethical, and so on and so forth. Why? Because although you had the intention to do what you're supposed to do, the intention in itself is not enough. You need an action plan. You need to apply this intention. You have to study this shiur and then say, okay, how am I going to apply this to my life? Not just theoretically learn it, delve into it, meditate over it, but actually have an action plan. So for example, someone that says, okay, listen, the rabbi says learning Shas is extremely important for a Jew. The rabbi says learning this is important. Okay, great. I agree. I like it. I'm going to do it. It's definitely going to be part of my life. Okay, so that's great. How are you going to do it? Oh, I don't know. I'm just going to start doing it. Okay, then most likely you're not going to do it. And if you're going to do it, it'll last maximum 2 days. What you have to do is say, okay, I see that studying Torah is important. I'm going to do it. Great. Now, draw yourself out a game plan how you're going to actually do it. You wake up at X time. You go to work at X time. You come home at X time. You eat and drink and whatever else that you need to do to manage your life, and then you eventually go to sleep. So that means there's a window of time in between all the things you need to do that you have to take those windows and see what's really there and see, okay, commit part of that time or all of that time to learning. So a person wakes up, let's just, for example, they wake up, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning. Okay, they have to go pray. So you pray. Let's say you finish 8 o'clock, you finished praying by 8, you finish by 9, you finish by 10, whenever you finish, great. Now, you have stuff to do. You want to do something, you want to go to work, you want to go to school, you want to do a lot of things. Fantastic. Now, is there some way that you're getting there? Let's say you're getting there by car. How long is the travel time? Travel time from where you are to where you need to be is, let's say, a half hour. Okay, so that half hour instead of listening to foolish music or sports or nonsense, throw in a CD or USB or one of the apps that we have, the Bezrat Hashem app, and use that half hour as listening to something. And perhaps if you hear something that sticks out to you, then make sure that as soon as you finish your drive, you take down a little notepad or something, write down what it is, write down the time. It will be reviewed again later that night. So already your half hour or hour, whatever it is, commute to work, turn into a small study session. It's not the best study session. It's not the ideal study session, but nonetheless, it's good. It's much better than wasting your time. When most people, what they do on their travel to work, back home, and all those things is typically nothing valuable. They make phone calls to a bunch of people they don't need to talk to. They listen to the radio full of Lashon Hara. They just listen to a bunch of music that's definitely not going to help them in their life. They do a lot of things that are meaningless. So at the very least, you know that every day you're in that car for a half hour. Listen to Shiur Torah. Okay, great. So now you got to work, you got to school. Fine. You now have you finish at some point. You finish, 5 o'clock, let's say. You get home from 5 you have to travel home. That's another half hour that you can listen to another Shiur Torah. Fantastic. Now you got home, you see the wife, you see your husband, you're going to eat, you're going to drink, you're going to do whatever it is that you're going to do. By the time you finish everything, it's, let's say, 9:30, 10 o'clock. Right. So now, you're not going to go to sleep at 10 o'clock. I mean, if you're starting your day at 8 o'clock, you're definitely not going to sleep at 10 o'clock. And if you are, you have some serious problems. I mean, you're sleeping too much. You're wasting half your life sleeping. So most likely, you're going to go to sleep at 12 o'clock. So that means that you have, at the very least, a 2-hour window to study serious Torah. Now, of course, our shulim are very, very good. But if you're in the early stages, that's usually going to be the main thing you're going to learn. But at the very least, learn them in such a fashion where you're taking down notes and you're treating it like something you want to commit to your life, rather than just learning it superficially, where it's like one day, one ear in, one ear out, and it's really, somebody asks you a question about what you heard, 5 minutes after you heard it, you're not going to remember. Try to retain some of it. Now, if you are further along in your tshuva, you're already religious for a while, you're already keeping Shabbat, you're already in this for some time, for some months, for some years, again, depending on your commitment, then get yourself some books. Get yourself some halacha books. Get yourself the Chumash. Get yourself a Gemara. Get yourself something and use that 2 hours to learn the Talmud Bavli. Learn, have some type of study session where you have that 2 hours. You are completely disconnected from the whole world. You have 2 hours of studying without any distractions, no phones, no distractions, no nothing. And you have 2 hours over there. And now you have a person that works and functions in the world for all intents and purposes very normally, has a wife, has kids, has everything, but also has 3 hours of real Torah in their life. Because you had that half hour to an hour each way going back and forth to work, of learning Mussar and a few halachot. And then you have the 2 hours of studying. And of course, everybody else's schedule is different. Some people have more time in the morning than others, and less time at night. But the point is that a person that listens to this and just says, wow, that really makes sense, and then does nothing, unfortunately, that's the person that the Gomi Vilna is rebuking. Because what you're supposed to get out of this entire 10, 15 minutes I've been talking about this is, okay, I got to do this. And start writing down your plan for tomorrow. For tomorrow. Okay, I wake up every day at such and such time. What do I do from the minute I wake up to the minute I go back to sleep? What is it that I do typically on a typical day? You wake up at such and such time. You pray at such and such time. You eat at such and such time. You go to the bathroom at such and such time. You go to work or school or wherever it is that you go at such and such time. You come back at such and such time. But in between all of those times, there are breaks, there are times, there are different things. And you have to literally iron out those few moments and steal them from the Satan. Steal that time back from the Satan and learn Torah during that time, but write it down and commit to it. Commit to it. That's going to distinguish a person that can listen to Mussar and every other type of shiur for 20 years without changing a little bit, to somebody that can go from literally zero to being a real Talmid Chacham, to becoming a real Talmid Chacham. You don't need, people for some reason think that unless you study 9 hours a day, you're never going to become anything. It's not true. It's simply not true. You can study less than that, but make sure that that time is valuable. Make sure that that time is valuable. Make sure that time is consistent. Make sure that time is without any distractions. And of course, you should also learn the Mussar about having all these distractions when you learn. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Shimon HaKadosh, says that a person that stops learning his Torah just to go and deal with idle things for no reason. He's like reading the book, stops, goes, hangs out with his friends. Oh, what do you think of the ball game? Okay, great. All right. What do you have? Baseball, World Series, Super Bowl. What are we playing? Okay. And you talk, and then you go back to the book and he watches the shiur. A person like this, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, says to him, that mouth that you used to learn Torah, but at the same time you used to desecrate Torah by going back and forth and toiling with idle things, that mouth is going to be fed gechalim retamim. These are hot coals that never go out, the Gemara says. That's what they're going to feed that person. Why? How are you treating the Torah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu like it's some newspaper? A person needs to take the Torah seriously. Why? This will determine whether you're going to go to heaven or otherwise. And I say otherwise because there's more than one choice for all of those that are confused. Now, the Guanmi Vilna is warning us because he cares about us. He's warning us because he knows a lot more than us about what the potential is for good and for bad. And in essence, he's telling us, Chas v'shalom, that such a person will simply just read the books, or in today's world, listen to the lectures online or in person, without an intent to fulfill it, without an intent to delve into it and develop a serious thought and deep thoughts of what's happening in there. Chas v'shalom, such a thing will happen. Why? Because this person will not only not change, but many times will actually get worse. His Torah learning will actually make him more arrogant. As the Gemara says, that a person that is not serious about his Torah, instead of it being the potion for life, it'll be a potion of death. It'll be like poison to him. Why? Because this Torah, sometimes, if you don't use it the right way, it can actually make an ignorant person arrogant, which is the worst thing in the world. If at least this person was extremely knowledgeable and he's arrogant about it, it's wrong, it's disgusting. Hashem says he hates it and he finds it completely repulsive. But at the very least, you can rationalize that, okay, he knows a lot of stuff, so he has something to be arrogant about in his own mentality. But a person that's completely a fool, doesn't know anything, but just thinks he does, pretends he does, tells himself he does, and is arrogant about nothing, that's the worst type. Why? Because this person is almost hopeless. Almost hopeless. And unfortunately, the world is full of people like this that think they know a lot more than they do. So it's critical for us to take the words of the Gomi Vilna as serious as possible, because this is what's going to save us. When we read our prayers, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to us every single morning that a person that is arrogant, that a person that is a prideful person is going to be taken out of the world. What does that mean to you? What do you think? Hashem made you and me and everybody else read it because it doesn't apply to us? Obviously it applies to us. So what do you get out of that prayer that says a person that has pride is going to lose his olam haba? That means that every single day we have to humble ourselves even more. Every day we have to humble ourselves even more. A person that is stingy with his time, with his resources, with his everything else. Torah talks about that. When you hear it, what do you think? It's talking to somebody else because you're too generous? No, if you heard it, that means it applies to you too. So when a person hears the messages of Torah from the world around them, whether it be from an online shiur, a live shiur, or a book, They should know that whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu is making your eyes read applies to you, and you have to work on it. Some people more, some people less. And chas v'shalom, God forbid that a person would think that Hashem put Torah in front of them that does not apply to them. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts something in front of you, that means it does apply to you. And unfortunately, many times, people simply are full of themselves. They're fooling themselves to think that they know a lot more than they do. They think that they don't need to develop anymore. And in fact, anytime you try to teach them something, instead of saying, oh, great, all right, you know what, I'm going to apply it, what do? They try to teach you back. They try to teach you back. Oh, yeah, listen, Rabbi, why don't you listen to my Dvar Torah? Here's 15 minutes. Can you listen to it? Wait, hold on a second. What are we exchanging ideas because of what reason exactly? You have a new insight. You want me to tell you if it's good or bad, or you're trying to teach me something? Like what are you trying to get out of this? Are you a teacher or a student? Where do you play? Now again, Mikol melamdai iskalti, David HaMelech says. David HaMelech says, I learn from everybody. So of course, anyone that loves Torah is going to listen to as much as he possibly can and learn it from everyone he can. It's not the question of the listener, the rabbi that you gave that information to. The question is on you. Why are you sending it? Are you sending it because you're trying to teach? Are you sending it because you're trying to double check? Are you sending it because you think that you simply don't need to learn anymore? You are good. And you're might as well be a teacher already. You just choose not to be. So many times people fool themselves to think that just because they've been learning for a few years, they're already at a point where they can teach everybody everything, including their own new insights that they kasher in their own eyes. So it's important for a person to learn Mussar and understand that there is different aspects of the Torah where, as far as the Torah learning, there is the Yedi'at Torah and there is Limud Torah. Yedi'at Torah is Torah knowledge. And there's Limud Torah and there's Torah learning. Most people that learn Torah learn it for the sake of Yedi'at Torah. They want to gain more knowledge. They want to gain more knowledge. And although it is important to gain more knowledge, although you have to gain more knowledge, that is not the bulk of the obligation we have from heaven. The bulk that we have from heaven is for us to do limud Torah, meaning learning Torah. Learning for the sake of learning. Why? Because surely we trust in divine providence that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, bechvodo be'atzmo, Him Himself, is monitoring you, I, and everyone else in the world at every single second, and surely is designing the Torah that's going to be in front of you to be for you. But you may not notice it at all times. You may not even recognize it if it was screaming at you with your name on it. But nonetheless, you have to learn for the sake of learning, even if you don't feel like you need to learn anymore. If it's in front of you, you need to do it. If it's the time to learn, because that's the time you committed to learning Torah, you need to learn. And it's not necessarily always because you're going to gain more knowledge. Sometimes it's going over information you already know. There's chazara. The point being is that if a person is only going to learn for the sake of just gaining more and more knowledge without real yedi'ah, meaning that they've delved into the material to the point where it's like engraved into their heart, they've applied it to their life, it's in their front of their brain and their mind. It's not something that's in the back of their mind. If they just simply read and they listen and it's everything is superficial, then the Gemara in Masechet Megillah, page 28, says that we mentioned it last week that one of the sages that was asked to do a eulogy on a chacham that died, says, what eulogy am I going to say about him? He was just a basket full of books. Meaning this guy knew a lot of information. He knew a lot, but he didn't know how to apply it because he didn't put himself in a situation where he would be next to a real Talmid Chacham, a rabbi that will oversee what he says, double checks what he thinks, and he could serve this Talmid Chacham. He didn't fulfill the things that he read. He just accumulated a lot of information. And unfortunately, that is a very common thing. where people accumulate a lot of information, get that feeling that they know a lot, but unfortunately stay the same beast or worse than they were before they started. That's where, in essence, we were at. And really, one of the things that we recently discovered is a video, short clip, a minute and a half clip, where a Rav Soloveitchik, alav shalom, one of the great sages in the United States, and of course many consider the forefather of modern orthodoxy. So Rav Soloveitchik is this was an excerpt that somebody took out of a whole lecture. If Bezrat Hashem I find the whole lecture, surely I'll share that as well. But that excerpt, whoever made it, knew what he was doing, knew what she was doing, because it really tells you a lot about what's the difference between the rabbi versus the student. The students today that claim to be the students of Rav Soloveitchik, they claim to be, the modern Orthodox students of Rav Soloveitchik, claim that they are following Da'at Torah, like we've discussed in the last few months with Goldberg and all these other people that say, oh, we listen to Da'at Torah, Da'at Torah, Da'at Torah. But yet, when we saw the letter from Rav Shechter that says that people are completely distorting Da'at Torah, and yet claiming that their Da'at Torah, that's a complete distortion of Da'at Torah, is actually what Rav Soloveitchik said, which is completely not. So, of course, a person wants to hear, what would the rabbi say? What would Rav Soloveitchik say if he was here? And guess what? He showed up. He showed up on a minute and a half clip saying that although he is the teacher of a lot of these people that learn a lot, know a lot, that would be considered Talmidei Chachamim as far as their knowledge, even in Yerushalayim, he says still they are unfortunately part of the biggest chesronot in American Judaism. They're part of the biggest deficiency in American Judaism. These very same people that know a lot of information, well, obviously we're talking about people that are, in many cases, rabbis. He says these people that studied under him in some cases, obviously, or probably in all cases, that know a lot of information, that are perhaps even leaders in Keilot, they are the biggest deficiency, he says, in American Judaism. Why? Because the zeal, the fire that is required for every single Jew, every single lover of Hashem, is required to have, is simply missing. They've intellectualized the Torah, they've rationalized it, and unfortunately, they've dumbified it. By rationalizing it, by looking at it from a perspective of whatever fits is what they're going to do, so they're going to paskin in accordance to desires rather than in accordance to emet. They're going to show passion based on the consumer demand, based on the feedback, meaning we're more concerned today about getting likes and selling books than we are concerned about actually helping Jews do tshuva and serve Hashem. We're more concerned about being on the receiving end of Christian money than we are concerned about the threat from the very same Christians that are giving money. And unfortunately, even Rav Soloveitchik literally came back from the dead with this a minute and a half clip to tell the people leading the modern Orthodox world, you are part of the deficiency if you are not zealous for Hashem, if you are not passionate about Torah, where you're pushing people to go up, not pushing the Torah to go down and meet people.
Die religiöse Stimmung, in welcher Jid darf sich finden in Kippur. Und das ist, ich glaube, als eine von den größten Chesrenes mit der Amerikaner, also gerufener moderner Orthodoxie ist, wie intellektuell ist sie sehr entwickelt. Ich muss auch sagen, meine Talmidim in meiner Klasse, ein Emes Alomdim, ich sagen alle, aber eine große Gruppe, Emes Alomdim. Sie wollten gewinnen Lomdim in Jerusalem mehr. Weil ich bin Poshet ein guter Rebbe. Und als ich weiter hier begegnet sage, Jeden Shemre Mitzvahs, aber mir durch sich sehr allem im Feld, oder der Feier, oder die Slaves, oder die Gaguim, oder die religiöse Stimmung, was unsere Ayidwegt haben, schon in Kippur, und das ist ja ganz Jahr, was speziell war schon in Kippur.
And unfortunately, many times people say big names and they say things in those big names. They'll say the Rambam, they'll say the Gomi Vilna, they'll say the Rabbi Akiva, they'll say quotes from the Torah, they'll say quotes from the Gemara, but they'll say it in such a fashion that fits their demented, personalized agenda that has nothing to do with what that sage said, and literally desecrate Hashem's name and his sages. So a person that does not have the zealousness, the passion, the fire to fight the wars of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a person that unfortunately is not going to withstand the tests that are required in the world we live in. And as Rabbi Ephraim Shichye told me, he says that, perhaps sometimes people don't understand what zealousness is, what fire is. They think that it's attacking, they think that it's aggression. Truth be told, the most successful speakers in the secular world, whether it be self-help, gurus, coaches, in sports, motivational speakers, and so on, they actually have that strategy is actually very common. They're the most aggressive, vocal, loud, obnoxious, sometimes using foul language to get people's attention. This is actually common language. The most successful coaches of all time didn't speak in a monotone, quiet whisper, but rather the opposite, because they knew that the passion that you project is the passion that you receive. And if you want to get people to do something, you have to make them passionate about the same things you're passionate about. But for whatever reason or another, people think that Darkei Torah, Darkei Noam, that the ways of the Torah is the ways of pleasantness, means that you have to, whisper everything and not say anything that's going to hurt anybody's feelings, even if they're a criminal against Hashem, even if they're openly homosexual and celebrating it. You should still accept everybody and kumbaya. This is not the way of pleasantness. This is the way of Chilul Hashem. So Rabbi Ephraim says, perhaps they don't understand this, and they think that this is aggressive. Well, let's see if they can understand an analogy or an example. Anyone that has spent as much time as I have in the hospital knows what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, B'ezrat Hashem, you never will, unless it's for, giving birth or joining your wife when she's bringing a baby to the world. But nonetheless, anyone that has spent any time in the hospital knows the most common sound in the hospital. Dit, 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 in every room. In every room, there's an EKG, there's a machine that makes the sound. And it keeps making sounds, and it's obnoxious, especially if you're sitting next to that machine, and you're not used to it, and you dit, and you're thinking, can somebody lower it or something? But guess what? They can't lower it. They can't lower it. Not because there's no function, it's that it's forbidden to lower it. You need that sound. You need it to be ticking and ticking and ticking. Why? Because the scariest sound that a hospital could ever have is silence. The scariest sound that machine could ever project is nothing. Because that means that person is dead. If it just goes, that's the nothing that I'm referring to. That monotone, that's death. In the world of Torah, many times the lethargic, nonchalant, monotone type of delivery is a show of spiritual death, sometimes by the speaker or sometimes as a prophecy of what's going to happen to the listener. Why? Because if the person is not showing passion, zeal, fire, then many times the listeners are not going to take this as something they need to do something about. Now, of course, there are different ways to show passion and zeal. It doesn't necessarily need to be screaming and yelling. It doesn't even have to be loud. But it does have to be. It does have to be. And that's in essence what I got out of the message from Rav Soloveitchik, where that fire, that passion that's missing from his students, it's not necessarily that they don't scream, because some of them do. It's not necessarily that some of them don't have a passion, but sometimes the passion is more for sports than it is for Torah. It's that it's misplaced passion or lack of passion. And that's one of the things that a person needs to have as part of their servitude of Hashem. Part of their servitude of Hashem. Now, the Gomi Vilna continues and says, ועוד בשביל יציאתם בין הבריות, כי זה מאבד את הכל. Also, even if one does study Mussar, they will lose its transformative power on the account of going out among people. And some people have a nusach that says going out among people unprepared. For this causes one to lose all the ground achieved through Mussar study. That's the next section. We're going to discuss for a little bit. Give a little insights of what that means. With the Gomi Vilna, if you read it superficially, is in essence saying, stay home, don't ever leave. But that's not necessarily what he's saying, because of course, the Gaon knows that people have to function in the world, they have to work, they have to this, they have to that. Even if somebody learns Torah all day, somebody has to go to the store and buy food. Somebody has to find a way to make a living. So we got the Torah in order to live by it, not to die by it. But yet, a person needs to know that just studying Mussar, in itself, we already know that it's not enough. Studying Mussar with the intention of applying it without an action plan also is not enough. But even if somebody, I studied Mussar, is applying it, could still lose all of it by a single event when they go out of their house. Why? They went out of their house unprepared. They study Mussar, but they could still lose their transformative powers by going out among people. Going out among people. Now, he continues and he gives a couple of examples. How could this be? Says, והמשל הזורע בלא חרישה, שיחטוף הרוח וישביע העופות וכולי. והוא בשביל שאין יכול לחסום עצמו ולגדור, והוא כזורע בלא גדר, ואוכלין החזירים וירמסון. He says this can be compared, and he gives a couple of examples. First one is, this can be compared to one who sows without having plowed, and the wind will snatch the seeds, and the birds will become sated from them. This is, in essence, him comparing to the someone that learns Mussar without kavanah. They go, they sow the seeds, but they didn't plow them. And what's going to happen to those seeds is that instead of them growing into fruits and vegetables, they're just going to become lunch for the birds. Person that learns Mussar without the right kavanah, without the right intention to apply it to themselves, is a person that is going to read, listen, but not change. And in fact, sometimes the change will be a negative change. They'll start rebuking the wrong people. They'll start thinking higher than themselves than what's reality. and they'll do all of the things that are the exact opposite of what they're supposed to be doing. Why? Because of that missing step in their strategy. Another example the Gomi Vilna brings is that this is because he cannot seal himself off and be protected. And so is the one who merely reads Musa like one who plants without a fence. Swine will devour and trample on everything. So this is a person that reads Musa with the intention of applying it to their life, but without taking an action plan. Or a person that is taking an action plan, but is still exposing themselves to the wrong environment. He's learning, but he says, I can't keep myself secluded. I have to go out. But his version of going out is going out to be everywhere with everyone. To keep the same friends, keep the same job, keep the same surroundings. And he doesn't realize that if you want to change, your environment has to change too. Because if it doesn't, those pigs, those swine, will end up devouring and trampling everything that you've built. Now, this is not an independent idea that the Guanmi Vilna came up with, but rather it's, of course, a development from the sages, and it's even a psak halacha. It's even a psak halacha that we see from the Rambam, where the Rambam says in Ilchot Deot, in chapter 6, first halacha, it's natural for a man's character and actions to be influenced by his friends and associates, and for him to follow the local norms of behavior. And therefore, he should associate with tzaddikim and be constantly in the company of the wise, so as to learn from their deeds. Conversely, he should keep away from the reshaim, from the wicked, who walk in darkness, so as not to learn from their deeds. This is implied by King Solomon in his statement in Proverbs chapter 13 verse 20. He who walks with the wise will become wise, while one who associates with fools will suffer. Similarly, King David says in Psalm 1 verse 1, happy is the man who has not followed the advice of the wicked. A person who lives in a place where the norm of the behavior are evil, the inhabitants do not follow the straight path, should move, and the inhabitants do not follow the straight path, that person should move to a place where the people are righteous and follow the ways of Torah. Meaning you cannot expect your environment to change for you. You have to go to an environment that's already developed. And if that means moving, because your community is full of people that are anti-Torah or idol worshippers, you have to move. This is one of the most difficult parts for people to do as part of their conversion or tshuva, where they realize at some point or another that staying in their current community is simply a poison pill that they're taking, whether they like it or not. Because they could learn as much as they want, but as soon as they go outside, they see that the whole world around them is doing the exact opposite, and many times that whole world will eventually have influence on them and cause them a lot of anguish. So people that come to us and they want guidance for conversion, we tell them, listen, the conversion is a two-part process. Part of it is knowledge, and the other part of it is applying that knowledge to your life, which means that you're going to have to move to a Jewish community. Oh, but it's expensive. Oh, but I can't this. Oh, but I can't that. Oh, if you can't move to a Jewish community, you cannot convert. Why? Because as a old Jew, you cannot live by yourself. You have to be part of a community because there are certain things that you need a community for. Even if you have certain knowledge, you need a community for certain things. Whether it's the Yamim Noraim, or it's a access to kosher food, or it's a Bet Knesset, or yeshiva for your kids, and so on and so forth. You need a Jewish community. Now, a person that says, no, listen, we'll just do whatever we can do on our own. If your plan is to stay this way permanently, you have a very, very serious problem. Now, if you want to convert to Judaism, this would not be accepted by any legitimate Bet Din. Only, rinky-dink, Bet Dins that decide to go and convert a bunch of strangers in a foreign land with no actual community are going to say, listen, you guys want to be Jewish? You have the right to be Jewish. And they'll make people Jewish in the middle of nowhere and say, oh, you guys are all Jewish. You followed the protocol. You did the steps, you accepted the mitzvot, you dipped in the mikveh, that's it, you guys are all Jewish. Okay, well, who here knows how to be Jewish? Who here knows how to read from the Torah? Who here knows the laws of kashrut? Who here knows the laws of being tarat mishpacha? Who here knows even how to, just literally read the Torah at all? Who here? Nobody. Why? Because you see that some of the people literally don't even know what they're saying. They don't know what they're saying. They say, I believe in Hashem. I believe in God. Okay, you believe in God. You can be a righteous Noahide. But unfortunately, Rabotai, people think that just because somebody wants to be Jewish, they should be allowed to be Jewish. This is a mistake. It's a mistake for them. Not just for the so-called rabbis that made them Jewish. You have to have a Jewish community. A Jewish community is a necessary part of a Jewish person's life. Now, of course, this may not always be available at all times, but a person should have a plan. A plan of what to do. A plan of what to do at some, point in the near term. And if a person has a plan where they figure that they're going to create their own Jewish community over the next 20 years by having a lot of kids, that's not a plan. That's, a sick person. Person needs to understand that they have to be part of a Jewish community because they need other Jews to learn from, other Jews to deal with. And the Rambam says that a person that lives in a place where the norms of the behavior are evil and the inhabitants do not follow the straight path, he's referring to the Torah, that person should move to a place where the people are righteous and follow the ways of the good. Now, if all the places which he's familiar with or of which he hears reports about follow the improper path, as in our time, the Rambam says, so if he says that all the places in his time, 850 years ago, are all full of evil, needless to say, what he would think of society today. If all of the places are following the improper path, as in our time, or if he is unable to move to a place where the patterns of behavior are proper, because of the presence of bands, of raiding troops, or health reasons, he should remain alone in seclusion. As the prophet says in Echa, this is the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 3, verse 28, let him sit alone and be silent. Now, of course, everybody says, oh, yeah, everywhere is evil, so that just contradicts everything you just said, that, that I don't have to move. Yes, everywhere there's evil, but there's always pockets of good. There's pockets of good in Lakewood, there's pockets of good in Muncie, there's pockets of good in different places in Israel, in different places in just a lot of Jewish communities, pockets of good. So, yes, the majority is evil, but there's still a kosher center, a bet midrash, a kosher shul, and they do exist today. But of course, there is evil. So a person can't say, since he says evil back then, it's everywhere is evil today. Yes, everything is evil today, but not everything. Meaning, the majority is bad, but there's still pockets of good, and that's where we need to all move to and live and be there. Now, if they are wicked and sinful, and do not allow him to reside there unless he mingles with them and follows their evil behavior, he should go out to caves and thickets and the desert, rather than follow the path of the sinners. As the prophet Jeremiah said in chapter 9, verse 1, who will give me a lodging place for wayfarers in a desert? So the Rambam gives us a extraordinary example of how important it is to live among righteous people. So much so that he says that first and foremost, you should not even imagine and delude yourself to think that you're not going to be affected by your surroundings. Everyone is affected by their surroundings. It's human nature. It may not affect you today, it may not even affect you tomorrow, but over time it will affect you. Whether it's the food or the luxuries or lack of luxuries or the different types of wicked things that people do in the streets and so on and so forth. This affects everybody, which means that a person has to understand that they have to run away from wicked people. And in fact, the very following mitzvah, the Rambam paskins la'alacha, the same thing as he writes in Sefer HaMitzvot, and also the same thing that was paskined in Sefer HaChinuch, that it's a mitzvah from a Torah, a positive commandment from a Torah, to cleave on to the wise people and their disciples, meaning connect yourself to Talmidei Chachamim. Do whatever you can to constantly be around Talmidei Chachamim, be part of their life, be part of whatever you can get, cleave yourself to Talmidei Chachamim. It's a mitzvah from a Torah, the Rambam says, not a suggestion. So first and foremost, a person needs to know that they are vulnerable. They're vulnerable to everything that's around them. You are who your friends are. Just like people say, you are what you eat, you are who your friends are. If you're going to be friends with wicked people, you're going to become wicked. People that do tshuva, people that convert, have to understand that part of your tshuva, part of your conversion is abandoning all of the evil from your past, which sometimes, most of the time, if not all the time, requires you to sever relationships with people that are causing you to sin, reminding you of sin, enticing you to sin, or simply telling you that you're crazy for trying to be righteous. These types of relationships many times are relationships that have to be severed. Sometimes you can maintain the relationship if those people are respectful and they don't try to be missionaries on you and try to entice you to go back to your old evil ways, and you can maintain it. And if you have more dominance on a relationship and you can influence those people to do tshuva also, that's a fantastic thing to do, and you should do it. As is also one of the mitzvot that the Rambam writes here in Ilchot Deot in chapter 6. But if you are surrounded by people that are constantly enticing you to sin, are constantly part of sins, are constantly trying to influence everything and anyone they can to sin, and they're discouraging you from trying to be righteous, discouraging you from serving Hashem, these are relationships you have to cut off. You have to cut off. Many times people do tshuva and they're surprised that some of their secular family give them ultimatums. Listen, if you continue dressing that way, acting that way, I don't want to see you anymore. And then they asked me, what should I do? I said, you should listen to them. Don't ever see them anymore. Well, what do you mean? But that's my dad. That's my brother. Okay, it's your dad, it's your brother. Well, write him a letter once a year if you want. But it's good. The fact they give you an ultimatum is fantastic. They're doing a job for you. They're telling you either you go back to being evil or abandon the relationship. You should listen to them. Say, you're right. I'm abandoning the relationship. Thank you very much for doing the job for me. At least I don't look like the bad guy. Why? Because the reality. Sometimes you have to separate from those types of people. Sometimes you'll have a relationship where person that you're friends with, family member, whatever, for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever it is, they may not be able to influence you. But every time they come to your house or to wherever you are, your kids see them. And your kids, they're not as strong as you. And they see, oh, how come Ima walks around like Rabbanit Sarah Imenu, Kisui Rosh, covered head to toe, tzadikah, but her best friend is walking around with a little less clothes than my kippah. What gives? Should I give her my kippah? Maybe I'll double our outfit? If you have a friends like that coming to your house, if you're showing people like that to your kids, you should know you are a murderer. You are murdering your kids. You're taking that kid's neshama and you're murdering it. You should know that. So don't tell your kid, oh, I love you, puchi, puchi, puchi. No. Tell your kid, listen, I'm sorry I'm murdering you, but I have such a desire to be with my old friends that don't know how to wear clothes that I have to bring them in front of you. You're murdering your kid. Why? Because that kid, or those kids that see those people with no clothes on, you are murdering their neshama because they're going to be confused. Why is Ima covering everything, but her friend not covering everything? So maybe we don't know why, but at very least every little kid can figure out, so it's okay then to do it. Why? If Ima, every time she sees this woman that's wearing a kippah as an entire outfit, if Ima hugs her every time and says, I miss you and I love you and you should come over more often, then that means that even if we did it, it'll be okay too. And guess what? You may just get that. Shem Yishmor V'Yatzil. And you can't blame your kid for that. You have to blame yourself. You murdered that kid. You can't even blame your friend. If you want to stay friends with certain people that are secular, they have to have an understanding. If they're coming to your place, they have to act and dress a certain way. If they're not willing to, stay out. Why? I have kids that I'm trying to raise, and my chinuch of day and night, toil, burden, a lot of mesirut nefesh and sacrifice can be ruined by a single cup of coffee. Sometimes guys bring some of their work buddies to the house. Some of those work buddies are not exactly religious. So you have everybody having their, oh, listen, the abbas with nice kippah, just big, like mine. And the son also has a big kippah like the abba. And the other son also has a big kippah like the abba. And the ima is, also has kisui rosh baruch Hashem. And the little girls, they also are covered, everything. Right? And then abba decides to bring some of his buddies, his brothers, his cousins, his whoever, his work buddies to the house. Yeah, come on guys, we're going to have dinner. Yeah, my house. Yeah, come, we're doing a party for something. Okay, Shabbat. Oh yeah, come Shabbat. Okay, so his friends drive to his house on Shabbat. They drive out of his house on Shabbat. They do it a few times, everybody knows, nobody cares. The guy says, listen, once you finish the Kiddush, you could serve, but I'm going to go out for a few minutes. Why? You okay? You're leaving? No, I'm just going to go smoke a cigarette. Your kid just heard that your friend is going to go smoke a cigarette on Shabbat. You just murdered your kid. You just took your kid, murdered him. Why? Because you're not going to rebuke your friend in front of everybody or at all, which is what it's going to tell that your kid. It's going to tell your kid, listen, even if I smoke on Shabbat, Abba's still going to love me and invite me to Shabbat. He's still going to invite me. And guess what? When one of those friends starts talking to one of the other friends, so did you get her number? No, I got it, did, that, too. And they start talking about the nightclubs and the sports and the zevil and the garbage and the gehenom that they're in. And guess what? Your little boy, tzaddik, goes to yeshiva every day. Listens to this filth coming out of people's mouth. They're talking about taking advantage of innocent women that is too stupid to realize that they're being taken advantage of. Or people that are addicted to all types of gambling and sports and the filth of the world. And your kid is listening to this on Shabbat. Guess what? You just murdered your kid. You should take all the food off the table, put your kid on it, and Akedat Yitzchak is better than what you're doing than inviting those people to the house. You want to do kiruv? Go do kiruv, but not in front of your kids. Go do kiruv, not in front of your kids. You want to go help your friends become religious? Not in front of your kids. Don't have that garbage come to your house in front of your kids. Why? Because your kids do not have the skin you do. They see people smoking on Shabbat, driving on Shabbat, acting all types of filthy ways. You bring homosexuals to your house. All that garbage that people bring to their houses, they don't realize, even if it doesn't affect you, it affects the people around you. It affects the people around you. And that's why one of the best things that a person can do, as soon as they do tshuva, as soon as they convert, is move far away from everybody. Even if they live in a place where there's a lot of Jews, move far away. Why? To grow, sometimes you have to take a few steps away from where you started. Sometimes a few more than a few steps. Because sometimes you're going to be in a place and you were driving on Shabbat every day for the first 20, 25, 30 years of your life. And all of a sudden you show up to the Knesset on Shabbat without a car. And you're praying. And it's week after week. Week after week. Week after week. And you're there for 3, 4 months. Serious. And one day, the rabbi has one of his students ask you to do something that you wouldn't ask anybody else to do. Or some of the people in the Keilah that know you from back in the day, when you were driving on Shabbat, they ask you to do something they wouldn't do themselves. Why? Because people like that exist in the world. Doesn't happen often, but it happens. And why? Because they don't want to let you grow. They still think of you as the old you, even though it's a sin from the Torah to do such a thing. To remind a Baal Tshuva of his old sins is a sin from the Torah. Rambam paskins like that. But the point being is that sometimes people from your past are going to remind you of your past. Hey, Ron, what's up, buddy? Ron. What? What are you talking about? Who? What? Where? What's going on? They still want to call you what you called yourself on Wall Street 15, 20 years ago. Why? Because they didn't change. They didn't change. And they don't want you to change. So they want to continue talking to you in the same way like it was 15 years ago. And this is not a new thing. There was one time a major announcement made. What was the announcement? One of the Gdolei Ado, the giants of all generations, one of them is showing up to our town. Oh, wow, big rabbi coming to the city. Wow, amazing. Everybody's asking, preparing. Wow, maybe he'll be at my house, maybe at my house. Everybody's thinking, who, what, when, how. Amazing things. So, people ask, people this, who's that? The event gets closer, and people are more excited. People are looking forward to seeing who this big rabbi is. And the day comes. And the day comes, and the rabbi shows up. And everybody's amazed. It was this tzaddik, long peot, looks light on his face, kodesh kodashim, something unbelievable. Even as Hasidim have lights on their face. Everybody wants to listen to Divrei Torah of this rabbi. Everybody wants to give honor to the rabbi. They hear some words. Wow! Amazing! Never heard things like this before. Everything is amazing. Everything is holy. Everything is extraordinary. The rabbi gives chizuk to the community. And after the lecture, people come up to the table to come and ask for a blessing from the rabbi, shake his hand. And one guy comes up to the rabbi. Hey, Nachman! Tach on his back. But as soon as he hit the rabbi, friendly, but like a buddy, the guy collapsed. As if his hand touched the rabbi, but instead of hitting flesh and blood, it's like he hit an electric fence with 5,000 volts and immediately collapsed. We have two questions. One, why is he doing that? Calling the rabbi Nachman? Hitting him like he's one of his buddies? Calling one of the big tzaddikim that came to our town? Nachman? Busha. But at the same time, this guy, is he alive? That's the second question. Is he alive? What happened? After they throw some water on his face. The guy gets back into shape. And he sees Nachman. But he can't call him Nachman anymore. Because something just happened when he did. And Rabbi Nachman, mi Breslev, looks at him and says, yes, my name is Nachman. And the guy mumbles, he goes, yeah, you remember we used to go to the same cheder when we were little kids? Rabbi Nachman says to him, yeah, and I grew up. Meaning, yeah, you may want me to still be the little kid in the cheder, in the public school. You may still want me to be there because you're still there. But I'm not. But he had such a merit, such a kedusha, that a Kadosh Baruch Hu would not let it happen. And he had to make sure that he and everybody else there knew that he's no longer Nachman. He's Rabbi Nachman in Breslev. And he'll always be known as that. Sometimes you have people like that in the community that simply will not allow you to grow. The Rambam says you have to leave. You have to move away. Go find yourself a new community. Why? Because you go up to a new community, whatever version of you shows up, that's the version of you that they'll know. They're not going to know the old Wall Street version of you, or the old basketball version of you, or the old whatever version of you. And many times, it's the best thing that a person can do as part of their journey. It's not easy. It's not cheap. It's not anything. But it's good. And it's necessary. But either way, a person needs to know that even if they don't have the problem that I just mentioned, there are endless amount of problems that are part of our society, part of our world. And if a person deludes themselves to think that they can associate with whoever, whenever, the past, the present, and the future, and it's not going to affect anything, they're mistaken. Because if the Rambam cared enough to make it a psak halacha that you have to move, cared enough to put Mussar in a book of halacha, not to show you that this Mussar is actually an obligation and not a suggestion. A person that does not realize this is deluding themselves to think that they are untouchable. The Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, Sefer written in the name of Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkinus, but it was published about 500-600 years ago. Even though Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkinus is almost 2,000 years ago. Published about 500-600 years ago. Different ma'amarim, different sayings and teachings that Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkinus put together during his life. This Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer has some extraordinary levels of kedusha in it, for those that can understand, midrashim, Mussar, a lot of beautiful things. In chapter 25, each chapter is very small. Chapter 25, Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkinus goes over this very same point about a person that thinks that his society is not going to affect him, and thereby will stay among wicked people, among secular people, among idol-worshipping people, and think, no, it's no big deal. Yeah, but your office is full of girls, and you're the only guy. You don't think it's going to affect you? Nah, I'm married, 4 kids. Okay, buddy, good luck with that one. Your office is full of guys, they're all single. You're a married religious woman. You don't think it's going to affect you? Nah, nobody even talks to me. Okay, good luck with that one. Your office is full of people that are anti-Torah, lefty liberals. You're the only religious guy, only religious girl in the office. You don't think it's going to affect you? Nah, everybody goes, I'm in my cubicle, I'm in my office, nobody affects me. Okay, buddy, good luck with that. You're deluding yourself. Says Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkinus, the rabbi of Rabbi Akiva, you are deluding yourself to think that it's not going to affect you the same way that somebody walks into a perfume store and goes by every table and goes by every perfume and then leaves the store and is surprised when his wife covers her face and says, whoa, what do you have on you? What did you do to yourself? He goes, what are you talking about? I didn't put anything on. Where were you? I was nowhere. I didn't do nothing. What nothing? You smell like you just came partly out of some type of, some flower, some tree, some garbage pail. You smell like everything. How'd you know? What do you mean, how do I know? You could smell you from 5 miles away. There's a cloud following you. Says Rabbi Eliezer ben Hokinos, if you go into a perfume store and expect not to be affected, you're deluding yourself. If you go into a place full of liberals, if you go into a place full of anti-Torah, if you go into a place full of idolatry, if you go into a place full of people that are living a life that's the opposite of what you're trying to do, and you think it's not going to affect you, you're deluding yourself. Hence the reason why the Rambam says that if everywhere you are, everywhere is full of wicked people, go to the desert. Yeah, but the desert is full of scary people, scary things, scorpions, anacondas, bandits, all types of stuff. Yes, you don't necessarily have to go to the desert per se, but make your life a desert. Meaning, you have a place to work, that's a kosher place. You have a place to learn, it's a kosher place. You have a place to live, it's a kosher place, and you don't let anyone or anything interfere with it. You see that they put some missionary next to you in your office, you ask the boss, listen, what other place could I work in if you want me to stay at this company? What do you mean? What's wrong with your desk? Nothing's wrong with my desk. I just don't want to sit next to a missionary. No, but he doesn't even talk to you. Doesn't make a difference. I don't want to sit next to him. In fact, I don't want him to work here, but I know I don't run the company. So how far can you move me? No, we can't move you. Okay, here's my pink slip. I quit. Bye. What do you mean? You make $100,000 a year, you're just going to quit? Yeah, I'm just going to quit. Yeah. I'm not going to work next to a missionary. I'm sorry. Why? Because my eternity is more valuable than your job. A person has to know that there's going to be some tough choices you have to make. There's going to be some tough choices. Sometimes you have an office that before you did tshuva, for all intents and purposes, everything was good. Once you did tshuva, you realize that 9 out of 10 employees are girls that don't know how to put a clothes on. They're the same like that girl that wears a kippah as an entire outfit. Now that he did tshuva, he comes to the office like, whoa, can't look there, can't look there, can't look there, can't look there. He starts walking like the blind. Can you show me where my desk is? Buddy, get a new job. Why? You're not going to survive. Okay, so today you're Rabbi Eliezer ben Hokinos of the job. Today you didn't look. Tomorrow you didn't look. 3 days you didn't look. And guess what? The more you don't look, the more they become attracted to you. Why? Because the sitra acha sits on their head. The sitra acha sits on their head. Every time you don't look, you produce kedusha. Every time you produce kedusha, the sitra acha becomes hungrier for you. You have to change your job. Yeah, but it's a tough job to change. It's a lot of money. Okay, so good luck with that. The point being is, Rabotai, you need to know your surroundings will affect you. Do not delude yourself to think that you're untouchable. Doesn't matter how much you learn. And that's what the Gomi Vilna and the Rambam are trying to teach us here. That you have to know that there is an extraordinary amount of risk being involved with people, being next to people. Now, you can't be secluded from the world. You have to function, but you have to limit it as much as possible. You have to go to the supermarket to buy stuff. They don't deliver, no problem. Go, get your stuff, leave. Don't start socializing with your best friend in the middle of the supermarket. Don't say hello to your cousin's wife. Don't do any of that stuff. Go, get your stuff, leave. You want to be a kosher person? Home, work, bet midrash. Home, work, bet midrash. That's it. Being in the streets, you're putting yourself at risk. Now, I know for most people this sounds fanatic, crazy, and so on. When you think that your neshama is all you have, and therefore you have to protect it, this is normal. When you think your neshama is easily fixable, untouchable even, something that you can do without, then you think it's abnormal, you think it's fanatic, you think it's crazy, you think that it's impossible even. But the truth be told is that if it was a $100 million diamond, and someone told you to do everything I just said, but just for the diamond, you wouldn't think there would be a problem at all. Why? Because you see the value, a tangible value in that diamond. If only you had that same appreciation for your neshama, you would realize that you'd have to appreciate it even more and value it even more than you do that $100 million diamond. Sometimes people contact me and say, listen, I have a bunch of problems. Please, can you give me a call? Okay, what? Did you watch my movie? No. Okay, so watch the movie, then tell me what you think. What's your question? No, but I want to call. I'm not calling you. Watch the movie, then we'll talk. No, but can you call me? Can you call me now? I'm not going to call you. But can you at least answer a question? Sure, what's the question? Oh, why do I have problems? Do you keep Shabbat? Yeah, I keep everything. Then you have one of the people in the office, female typically. Can you do me a favor, look at this person's Facebook profile, tell me if they're modest? Yeah. 37 seconds later. I'm sorry, don't look. What do you mean? They're wearing a kippah. And the person wants you to help them, and they portray themselves as if they're observing Torah and mitzvot, but they're wearing a kippah. A woman wearing a kippah as an entire outfit. But she thinks that, she has a special problem. It's not a special problem. She is the problem. But they don't see the problem. They want a customized solution that involves continuing their life as it is, but everything good happening. Doesn't exist. Your environment will affect you. If you're dressing the way you are because you're surrounded by people that do that, change that environment. Change those people. Hard? Yes, but if you realize that your neshama is on the line, then it becomes easier. Now, what about people like myself that get to see a lot of people, and whether it's the different chesed that we try to do, or people that give lectures, what happens to them? Chachamim discuss it. And the Lekutei Sichot in volume 23, and also the Metzudat David says the same thing. That a person that is only in a certain place, certain community, or a certain event, solely for the purpose of spreading Torah, doesn't need to worry about being influenced by the surroundings. If they're there truly to spread Torah, they don't have to be worried about being influenced by secular people, idol worshippers, and any of that stuff. Why? Because the Torah that they're spreading will protect them. Because there's a teachings from our sages that the shluach mitzvah, the messengers of mitzvah, will not see any evil. And also in the Yoreh De'ah, it talks about how a person that's preoccupied with giving will never be put in a position to receive. But the truth be told, if a person is not careful, they could even lose that protection. They can lose that protection. Shem Yishmo. They can lose that protection even if they've been religious for 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. They can lose that protection. We have a teachings in the Gemara talks about how one of the Kohanim Gdolim, Kohen Gadol, for decades, became an apikoros before he died. Heretic. Before he died. From there we learn, don't trust yourself until the day you die. No one is above it. Everybody is subjected to the risk. We can't delude ourselves to thinking that just because we've done so much or that we're excluded. So what gives? What can we do? The Gemara in Masechet Shabbat. Gemara Masechet Shabbat, page 31. A says in the name of Rava that when a person is escorted to his final heavenly judgment after his death. The Beit Din of Shamayim asks some questions. What are these questions that is the person asked? What are these questions? And Rava tells us the first few questions that each one of us is going to be asked after 120. Be'ezrat Hashem. First question. Did you conduct your business transactions faithfully? Second question. Did you set time aside for Torah study? Third question. Did you engage in procreation? Fourth. Did you wait in the hope of messianic salvation? 5. Did you delve into wisdom? Meaning did you learn Gemara? And when you learned Torah, did you learn it deeply in order to infer one thing from another? These are the first several questions. Now, Rava says, even if he answers those questions, which I'll elaborate on in a minute, even if he answers all of those questions in the right way. He conducted his business with emunah. He learned Torah. He expected for the salvation. He dealt with procreation, which doesn't mean actually trying to have kids, but rather helping people that are weak, orphans, people that are looking for a shidduch. That's what it's referring to. It's not procreation like a person's trying to have kids. He expected the Mashiach, didn't deny the messianic age. He delved into the Gemara, learned some Daf Yomi or more, and even tried to toil into the Torah to understand one thing into another. Then they're going to ask him, or they're going to answer him, where his judgment is. But if he answered the right way, why do they have to tell him where his judgment is? Isn't that a given? No. Because if he did all of that, but he did it without fear of the Almighty, the judgment is concluded as if he did nothing. Why? Says Rava, Yirat Hashem iotzaro. Fear of the Almighty, fear of Hashem, that's his treasure. Now where does Rava get all of this from? We've discussed this part in the past, but we've never discussed the source for this. First of all, the source that is where, the Yirat Shamayim, that's Hashem's treasure. And second, the source of these questions. What? Did Rava go up to Shamayim, see somebody's Beit Din, and got the questions, wrote it down in a little notebook, and came back down? Well, he could have. But that's not the way where you got these questions. Because we know there's some sages who went up to Shamayim, saw some things. So we can't ever limit what the sages were entitled to in Shamayim. But nonetheless, that's not the way that he got it. He got it from the Torah itself. He got it from the Torah itself, that when the sages learned Torah, they learned Torah very, very differently than us. They learned Torah by analyzing and introspecting every single letter, every single word, in order to understand the deeper meaning of everything. And from there they understood that if somebody does not have fear of the Almighty, whatever they're doing is tainted. Whatever they're doing is damaged. Whatever they're doing is incomplete. Their servitude of Hashem is incomplete at best and doesn't exist at worst. They may be serving themselves. Where did Rava, one of the greatest sages that ever lived, where did he get it from? The book of Isaiah, chapter 33, verse number 6. The prophet is instructed to say these words to Am Yisrael. Ve'aya emunat eitecha chosen yeshuot chokhmat v'dat yirat Adonai hi otzaro. Translation: the faith of your times will be the strength of your salvation. Wisdom and knowledge, fear of Hashem, that is man's treasure. So here we're going to delve into this, understand to the best of our abilities how the sages got what they got from this verse. Where we see this verse, we say, oh, Prophet Isaiah is simply making a statement where he's telling you that the faith of your times will be the strength of your salvation. You need wisdom, you need knowledge, and fear of the Almighty is great. I mean, how did you get this as questions in Shamayim? How did you get all this? First and foremost, the Radak says that the ultimate message in this verse is very obvious, that fear of Hashem is the most prized possession, the most valuable thing. Why is it the most valuable thing for a man? It's the most valuable thing for a man because just like wealth serves a person and gives him strength at times of need, so does the fear of Hashem. Where the fear of Hashem involves a person that's in pursuit of wisdom and knowledge of Hashem. And this very same fear of Hashem will save a person from difficulties, and therefore assuring him to have peace at all time. So meaning that the reason why fear of the Almighty is so valuable is because that fear will protect you at times of turbulence. What's time of turbulence? You have some girl with no arms and no legs, as the Gemara says, doesn't cover her body, walking next to you. And that fear of Almighty tells you, forbidden, don't look, look away. Somebody's enticing you to sin, an old boyfriend, an old girlfriend, gambling, some type of immorality, some type of unethical behavior, stealing, all types of things that everybody knows are forbidden by the Torah and sometimes, many times, by the law of the land. But it's enticing, it's juicy, looks delicious. If you have fear of the Almighty, that's going to give you the strength to overcome it. That's going to give you the strength to overcome it. Why? Because a person knows that there's no limitations when it comes to serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu expects a person to serve him in everything, including his business. Person that is not honest in his business, the Gemara in Masechet Yomah, page 86, says that a person that's not honest in his business, it's considered Chilul Hashem. What's not honest in his business or bad in his business? Person, obviously, it's stealing, cheating, that's obvious. No, but Chilul Hashem could even be in a business where a person is unethical or simply has bad manners. He has bad manners. Doesn't treat his customers or employees the right way. Doesn't pay people on time. Does bad business. Ordered some stuff under the agreement that he's going to pay within 30, 90 days. 90 days hit, check doesn't hit. Oh, Mr. Shmuel, yeah, remember that those goods that you ordered? Yeah, of course I remember that. I've been selling them for the last few months. Oh, okay, great. How are they going? They're going okay, a little slower. Okay, well, okay, listen, so you bought it, and we gave it to you, and you remember you agreed that you're going to pay us for what you bought? Yeah, of course I agreed. No, we're not going to get it free. Oh, okay, great. So you know we're not going to give it free. No, of course. Okay, so see, if you remember, we said you're going to give it, pay us in 90 days. Remember, you said 90 days? Well, it's 95 days when we didn't get the money. So maybe your assistant forgot, or maybe it was lost in the mail. So perhaps, maybe you could wire us the money. No, I can't do that. Well, why not? I don't have the money right now. Yeah, but you got the goods. Yeah, but I didn't sell everything. I expected to sell everything by then. That's a problem. That's a very serious problem. Why? You had an agreement. You have to fill that agreement. Of course, people make mistakes. But I'm talking about people that make mistakes accidentally on purpose and on a regular basis. Those types of people, they're not even going to pass the first question in Shamayim. So a person needs to know that Yirat Shamayim, fear of the Almighty, will protect you from making these types of bad decisions, of taking what doesn't belong to you, doing things that are unethical, doing things that you know are wrong. Fear of the Almighty will give you the strength to overcome it. The Kedushat Levi says that when a person is infused with fear of Hashem, they end up enjoying the constant pleasure from that fear because it gives them the knowledge that they are in God's hands and therefore are unfazed by any of the challenges that are in day-to-day life. Meaning that that very same fear of Hashem, the fear that a person can lose all their money, the fear that a person can get sick, the fear that a person could be lonely, not have kids, fear of disease, fear of dying, fear of Gehenom, fear of Kafakela, fear of Chibut HaKever, fear of the worst possible nightmares you could ever imagine, fear of a personal or a national Holocaust. All of that fear that you're supposed to have in your mind at all times that everybody speaks against, the Kedushat Levi says, that fear is the best thing in the world for you. Why? Because it'll make you happy. It'll make you safe. It'll make you feel like you have nothing to worry about. How could it be? Shouldn't I be worried about hell and kafakela and dying and losing? Yeah, of course you should be afraid of it. But that's it. That's all you need to be afraid of. You see, if you're afraid of all of that, then that means that you're going to do everything possible not to end there. Because you know that there's no way of running away from Hashem's hands. There's no way of running away from judgment. So long as you acknowledge the fact that Hashem is the only judge, and He's the one that decides everything, that means He not only decides everything there, and in your life, in this aspect of mitzvot, but also in regards to lawsuits, sicknesses, loneliness, children, marriage, whatever. So the fact that you acknowledge that that great God, the one and only God of Israel, can punish, should give you comfort, should make you happy, should boost your emunah to the highest level. Why? Because now I know I'm in His hands. And so long as I do what He says I have to do, the rest of this world's problems, the money issues, the health issues, this issue, that issue, that's not for me to worry about. He's the one that's taking care of it. I'm in His hands. That very same fear of heaven that many of these local rinky-dink rabbis and some of these YouTube crazies say, oh, don't teach fear. That very same fear is lacking from people and thereby causing people to be so unhappy, causing people to have so much anxiety. Because the Kedushat Levi says, when you have that fear of the only thing you're supposed to be afraid of, it'll actually make you happy. Because now you know there's nothing else to be afraid of. Only Him. That's it. I don't have to be afraid of animals and buildings and anything else. Why? It's all Him. It's all Him. It's all HaKadosh Baruch Hu. En od milvado. There's nothing else but Him. When I know there's nothing else but Him, there's nothing for me to be afraid of. No more anxiety, no more stress, no more nothing. And that's the beauty of fear of heaven. That's what makes it a treasure, says the Kedushat Levi. Comes Rashi. Rashi HaKadosh says, why is the fear of Hashem called man's treasure? Because fearing Hashem is a good treasure because it prepares a way for Hashem to provide a person abundance. Meaning, when a person fulfills one of the mitzvot out of the 613, surely he gets a reward. Sometimes HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives a person an ability to do more with it even in this world. You like to give tzedakah for Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give you more money. Why? Because schar mitzvah mitzvah, the reward for a mitzvah is a mitzvah. But what do I get for fear of heaven? It's one of the 613 mitzvot. Says Rashi HaKadosh, you know what you get for fear of heaven? Abundance. Abundance. That's what you get for fear of heaven. You will not lack anything. Why? Because you fear Hashem. How does that make any sense? Why should a person that fears Hashem get money, get jobs, get whatever they need? Why? Why should a person get all of that? Because when you know where everything comes from, it only comes from Him. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you discovered my treasure. You have Yirat Shamayim. You discovered my treasure. Let me give you some. It's measure for measure. It's measure for measure. You have fear of heaven, meaning that you acknowledge that the only thing you need to be afraid of is heaven, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because He's the source of everything, both reward and punishment. When you acknowledge HaKadosh Baruch Hu with a high level of fear of heaven, you're only increasing the abundance, because the higher your acknowledgement, the higher your acceptance, the higher your belief in fearing the Almighty, the more you're going to see the treasure that you yourself discovered. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give you abundance, says Rashi. So all of those people that tell you being afraid is bad for you. Yeah, if you want to be homeless, you want to lose everything, then it's bad for you to be afraid. Yeah. But if you want to have abundance, being afraid of the Almighty is the greatest thing you can do for yourself. The Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, as we said, says that the Holy One, blessed is He, says that in His treasure chest, the fear of Hashem is what He has. And therefore, the Chovot Levavot in Shar Yirat Shamayim says that nothing in the world is equivalent to the fear of God. Not silver, not gold, not pearls, not any buried treasure. Everything is insignificant compared to the fear of the Holy One, blessed is He. And that's why it's written, fear of Hashem, that is His treasure. But now we got a clarity of why fear of Hashem is the treasure. We still don't understand how the Gemara, Rava from the Gemara, connected this particular statement to the 6 questions in Shamayim. And now we're going to find out. You see, fear of heaven being the treasure of Hashem, that's literal in the Gemara. The sages are just telling us how it's a treasure. But there's a first half to the verse. The first half of the verse that says, V'aya emunah itecha chosen yeshuot chokhmat v'dat yirat Adonai yotzaro. That the faith of your times will be the strength of your salvation, the wisdom and knowledge, fear of Hashem. That is a man's treasure. So Rava is telling us, here is a prophecy by Isaiah. Isaiah was a real prophet. Everything that he said had a stamp of approval from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to say it before he said it. It's the words of Hashem. The prophecy is as follows. He says to us, you're going to need some things. You're going to need some things in order to survive. Not just the end of days, but even the end of your personal days. You're going to need some things in order to arrive at the Beit Din of heaven and have an eternity of good. There's an eternity of good and there's an eternity of bad. And then there's a lot of things in the middle, where there's a really, really long sentence of bad and eventually good, but nobody wants the bad. So if you want the good, follow this set of instructions. The prophet Isaiah is giving us a detailed list of instructions, what you need to have answers for when you go up to the Beit Din of Shamayim. Ve'aya, meaning in the future, you're going to have what? You're going to need what? Emunat. You're going to have faith. What faith? Rabbi says faith in your business dealings. You're going to have to show faith in your business dealings when you go up to Shamayim. How can you show faith in your business dealings? When you go up to Shamayim, there's no business there. No, you have to show them that you had faith, you had emunah when you conducted business in this world. That's the first thing you're going to have to show them. Because if you don't have faith in Hashem during your business dealings, then of course everything else you do is corrupt. Everyone can show themselves as a so-called righteous person when they go to the synagogue. Everyone can show themselves as a righteous person on a video and pretend to be righteous. Everyone. How did you conduct business? When somebody overpaid you, did you give them back? When somebody forgot, did you give them what they deserve? When you said you're going to do something, did you do it? When you had an opportunity to steal, did you steal? How did you conduct your business? Did you buy refurbished and sell it as new? Or you bought and sold as the same? When your client said, listen, I'm going to hire you as my lawyer. How much you charge? I charge $800 an hour. No problem. I'm willing to pay you. Okay. Now you know you got a client, has a lot of money, doesn't mind paying you top dollar, $800 an hour. There's even lawyers that are more expensive than that. Now let me ask you a question. When you sent them that bill, did you really work all that time that you said you worked? Because of course the client, he doesn't know how much you work. He's too busy making money. He's building this, he's doing that. But he knows he's got you. You need to help him in his case, with this one, with that one, with this one. And he knows that every so often you're going to send him a bill with whatever hours you worked. Now you have expenses. Personal expenses, business expenses. You have employees, you have children, you have hobbies, you have a boat. So when you looked at that bill and you saw that, oh, this month we only worked an hour, $800. Yeah, but I got to make a payment for $8,000. Perhaps the secretary could accidentally on purpose spill some ink on that 1 hour and put a 10, put a 0 next to it, and now that 800 turns into 8,000. Did you ever do that? Because the client can't see and he won't even check. Why? He's too busy making money. Did you charge him 8,000 when really it was only 800? What about the doctor? Doctor told his client, listen, told his patient, listen, what's wrong? Oh, doc, I have a headache. And the doctor has so much experience, he knows that in reality, an Advil, an Aleve, or some type of aspirin would relieve the problem and there's no issue. But he says, you know what? With an Advil or Aleve or some type of pill, what am I going to make? Visit? $100? No. You know what, sir? Where does it hurt exactly? Over there. He's not even looking. Okay, you know what? Here you go. What's this? We're going to get a MRI to check what's there. Did he really need an MRI? Could you have checked in a different, cheaper way? Perhaps. Or maybe you're one of those doctors that says, hey, honey, listen, we love you. We're going to be there for you. When you're ready to deliver the baby, we're going to be there for you. You want to do it natural? We're going to do it natural for you. We believe in it also. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. Okay. But the girl shows up. The water broke. She's nervous. She's in pain. But the baby's not ready to come out yet. As a doctor, you know that it's only a matter of time. Baby's going to come out. An hour, 2 hours, 5 hours. It's coming out. Perhaps you were a little bit too quick and you said, honey, listen, this is not good. You should have a C-section. Why? Why a C-section? Because C-section is better for the doctor's pocket. Industry secret. It's quicker and sometimes a little bit more money. So sometimes. Or maybe you already took care of that before. Why? By telling the girl that's having her first or second kid and doesn't actually know what's inside her body, honey, listen, I'm worried. Maybe the kid has a big head and I think you need to have a C-section. I don't think you need to wait. Why are you pushing C-section? Why is practically almost literally like 70% of the birth C-sections? Did women lose the capability of giving natural birth? Now, of course, for many women, it's perfectly normal and preferable to have a C-section. But that's not the problem. If the girl prefers it, the woman prefers it, that's her preference. The problem is when the doctor prefers it. Why does the doctor prefer it? Medically, it's not necessarily always a good thing. It's not necessarily always an advantage. Sometimes it's not, because there's a limitation of how many you can have without having certain surgeries and risk and so on. But you see, in America at the very least, and I know in some other places, they push C-section like as if it's the only way. They let the people say, listen, you need C-section. Why? The kid's head's big, the kid's head's this, he's this way, he's that way, and they're pushing you to have a C-section as if it's the only way the kid's going to come out alive. In reality, you see that everything that's said is fake, but it's already too late. They already cut you. How come? Did you do that as a doctor? Hey, doctor, did you do that? You have a problem. Why? You lied. You cheated. And it caused somebody pain. You have to do tshuva. There's tshuva for everything. The point being is, if a person looks honestly into their business dealings and doesn't find some type of mistake, either they're not looking enough or they're simply lying to themselves. Everybody screwed up at some point or another in something. Some, it happened here and there, mistake, overlook, momentary loss of control for a desire for money. It happens. But some, and unfortunately many, made it into a lifestyle where they think that to do business is to hustle. To hustle means do whatever you can to get whatever you can and whatever you want. Even if that means hurting some people. Even if that means not paying on time. Even if that means ordering stuff that you can't even pay for. Even if that means selling something that's really something else. Even if that means doing procedures that are unnecessary. Even if that means putting an extra zero on a bill because no one's going to notice because they're too rich and too busy to pay attention. Even if that means not overlooking your project, and even that means not finishing the project because you're a contractor and you got paid all the money, but perhaps no more motivation to finish the job because there's somebody else that will only give you the money if you start the job. So I rather go there to go get started working there because there he's going to pay me new money. Yeah, but I already paid you money for you to finish the job. Yeah, but I got to get new money. Yeah, but don't you realize that I paid you to do the job so you could finish the job? Yeah, that's your perspective. What do you mean? It's the only perspective it should be. A distorted mind will rationalize every evil. And unfortunately, there's no end to the amount of stories that I've heard in my life from bad contractors that promised one thing and did something else, or bad lawyers, or bad this, or bad that, and I've unfortunately encountered them myself. And I've told you guys without exaggerating, I've dealt with literally thousands of people in business over the years. I've never found a single honest person in business. Not a single person that's honest consistently. Sometimes honest in the beginning, then later on becoming dishonest. Sometimes this, sometimes that, but never somebody consistently honest. Not a single person in my life. Not a single person. Why? People have momentary loss of control, and sometimes that moment becomes a lifetime. So back to our Gemara, back to our Pasuk by the prophet Isaiah. The prophet Isaiah tells us that in the end, you're going to realize that the treasure you have to focus on is fear of the Almighty. To get to that treasure, you have to know there's instructions. First and foremost, there's going to be an end to your life at some point. When your body finishes its job here, your neshama goes up there. Over there's a bet din. Hashem designates 3 sages from the Jewish people that are going to judge you. They know the entire Torah. They know your entire life. They're going to show it to you. And they're going to ask you questions. Question number 1. When you conducted business while you were in this world, did you conduct it with emunah in Hashem? Did you have faith that Hashem is watching you at all times when you were dishonest? Did you have faith in Hashem when you were stealing? Did you have faith in Hashem when you thought no one's watching? Did you have faith in Hashem? Your actions obviously dictate something, but what answer are you going to give? What answer are you going to give? That's the first question. Second word, itecha. The faith in your time. What faith in your time? Rava says time is referring to time to learn Torah. How are you going to have faith if you don't learn Torah? Did you make time to learn Torah every day? Torah is not something you do just on Tuesday nights when there's a shiur. Torah is something that you're obligated to do every single day. Vigita boyomam v'layla. The Rambam says that you have to, there's a commandment to learn Torah in the morning and at night. And if it wasn't a commandment to learn Torah morning at night, we'd only learn at night because that's when you acquire the most wisdom. But nonetheless, we have to learn in the morning too, which means every single one of us has to designate a certain amount of time to learn during the day and a certain amount of time during the night, not just random whenever you feel like it. You have to designate a certain amount of time. Why? Because that shows that it's a serious part of your life and not just something you do as a hobby. Hobbies you do whenever you want. Serious things, have a schedule, have a plan. Did you have a plan for your Torah? Vaya emunat itecha chosen. Chosen is strength that you have in your time. The faith of your time will be a strength. Chosen is strength. What is a strength? Did you use your strength to bring more children to the world? Children from people that are unmarried. Did you help them get married? Did you help the children that were already here but didn't have parents? Did you deal with the procreation that the Gemara is asking about? Procreation, producing more people in the world, more marriages in the world, kosher marriages in the world. Helping the people that are orphans, poor. Did you use your strength to help the poor? People that can't finish the month and you can finish 15 months. Did you help them? Did you use that extra to help them, or you just helped yourself get a second or a third house? If you only helped yourself mainly, and that was your priority in your life, you've already failed question number 3. Question number 4, Yeshuot. The faith of your time will be a strength of your salvation. Yeshuot. What's Yeshuot? Rava says Yeshuot is referring to the time of Mashiach. Question number 4, did you believe the Mashiach is going to come at any given day? Or did you just say, oh yeah, B'ezrat Hashem is going to come and take care of all my debt? Oh, B'ezrat Hashem is going to come and everybody's going to like each other again. Did you believe in the real Mashiach? Or did you turn some idol into a Mashiach? Turn yourself into a Mashiach. Did you believe in the real Mashiach? That's a big deal. Chokhmat. What's Chokhmat? Wisdom. Did you delve into what's called wisdom? What's wisdom? The Gemara. The Gemara that has the Mishnah in it. The oral Torah. That's the wisdom. The ultimate wisdom that we have access to is in the oral Torah. Oral Torah tells us what's in the written Torah. Oral Torah includes both written and oral. Did you delve into it? Or did you just stick yourself on only learning YouTube videos for the rest of your life? 30 years you're about Tshuva, you're only watching videos. Or did you finish the Shas a few times? Read some Mussar books. Read some halachic books. Read some Gemara. Read the Chumash. Read. Or your whole life, 20, 30 years, Torah observant, only watching videos. Wisdom is acquired in multiple ways. It's not a single way. You have to benefit. Benefit from the Torah in all the different ways that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you. If you don't have the ability to do something, pray for it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give you the ability to do it. But did you at least try? Did you at least try? And some people say, yeah, I learned Gemara, I've already finished the Shas 2, 3, 4 times already. But he still watches movies. He finished the Shas twice, but he still watches movies on the internet. Or in a movie theater, Shem Yishmo. How is it? He completed the Shas, learned a lot of oral Torah, learned the Chumash, and he still watches movies. Or he looks at women that are not his wife. Or he says things that are completely inappropriate. Or he befriends people that you're not even allowed to stand next to. How could it be? Because he failed at the next step. Vedat. What's Vedat? Not only go for wisdom. Not only the faith of your times will be the strength of your salvation, and you'll have wisdom, but what? Knowledge. What is this knowledge? Knowledge is, Rava says in the Gemara, knowledge is, did you delve into it deeper? That knowledge that you were studying, that Gemara that you were studying, the Mussar inside the Gemara, the halacha inside the Gemara, the everything, the agada in the Gemara, did you delve into it deeper and deeper and deeper to the point of gaining knowledge of how it applies to you today and again tomorrow and again the next day? Did you delve into it, or you just read it superficially? You read Masechet Rosh Hashanah, page 17a, about people go to Gehenom, but you figured this has nothing to do with you. You read about how pride takes people way out of this world, but you said, nah, it has nothing to do with you. You read about, people are supposed to open up their hands to help people, but you figure this doesn't apply to you. Why? Because it doesn't apply to you. A person can delude themselves to read a whole lot of books and find nothing relevant to them. Still live a very sinful life, but think that they're more righteous than everybody else. So Rava says, the way that I got those 6 questions is not simply out of the hat, but it's a prophecy. A prophecy by the prophet Isaiah in chapter 33, verse 6, where he tells us there are going to be 6 questions once the end comes. The end for every individual will come at some point. And everybody's going to have 6 questions asked. Did you conduct your business with real faith? Did you make time to learn Torah? Did you use your strength to help the needy? Did you believe that the salvation of Mashiach, of Am Yisrael, will come? And it's not Jesus, and it's not some Rebbe. Did you believe in the real Mashiach? Did you toil in wisdom, in our oral Torah? And did you delve into it deeper in order to have a real understanding of how it all applies to you? All of it applies to you. And you have to fix yourself. So long as you're in this world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling you clearly, you need to fix yourself. Did you do all of that? The prophet Isaiah told us that's the 6 things you're going to have an answer for. Yeah, but what if I did it? The prophet Isaiah says, once you did it, then you need to know that you have to keep it. You have to keep it. How do you keep it? You keep it with Yirat Shamayim. Yirat Shamayim, that's the preservative. That's the preservative. The Gemara says that Yirat Shamayim, fear of the Almighty, that's like the preservative on the different food, the crops. Where, for example, one person was told by his boss to put a bunch of crops in the shed. And after he came down, the owner asked him, did you put chumtin on it? Did you put the preservative on it? He said no. So the boss said it was better off you didn't do anything. Why? Because without preservative, all those crops are going to die. The very same Gemara Masechet Shabbat says, what is this trying to teach us, this chumtin, this preservative? This preservative is Yirat Shamayim, is fear of heaven, fear of Hashem. That fear of Hashem is preserving the Torah that you've learned. And if you've learned Torah and you did good things, but you don't have fear of heaven, it's as if you didn't do anything because it counts for nothing. you've already failed the entire test. Because whatever you didn't do it because of the right reason. You did it for yourself. You did it for yourself. Your business dealings were for yourself. Your learning of Torah was for yourself. Helping people gave you pleasure. People gave you respect, honor, and so on. Learning wisdom. People like to be smart. Believing in a salvation. Everyone wants to believe in a salvation because they want an end to their problems. Delving into it, you want everyone to think that you're smarter than everybody else. But in reality, everything you did is for yourself. Without fear of heaven, we have no preservative. And therefore, it's as if we didn't do anything. And what I thought is that in order to acquire all of these things in the right way, in order to have real emunah when you do business, have serious commitment to learning Torah, have a desire to help the needy, help the weak, a desire to help people, believe in Mashiach Tzidkenu, the real Mashiach, the right way, and what's going to happen, and why we're so zealous, and why we're so urgent to commit ourselves to the wisdom of a Torah and not to the wisdom of the Gentiles or the wisdom of all of the heretics. Commit ourselves to only one wisdom, and the wisdom of a Torah. And needless to say, to delve into every single word of this wisdom in order to see how it applies to us. In order to acquire all of those, you need to already have some fear of heaven. That was my insight. And then I found myself a friend. I found myself a friend, and there couldn't be a better friend. My friend was the Maharal. The Maharal says that Otzar, the word Otzar, where it says that Yirat Hashem Yotzarot, that the fear of heaven, the fear of Hashem that's his treasure. The fear of Hashem, that's his treasure. Treasure is Otzar. Otzar is referring to safe, a treasury, a place where a person's fortune is safe. And in the context of our verse, says the Maharal, the prophet Isaiah is saying that all of the virtues listed in this verse, the emunah, the salvation, the time for Torah, and so on, all of these things can be safeguarded only if one has fear of the Almighty. Because that's the preservative of faith, that's the preservative of wisdom, and all of the other spiritual attainments, because it prevents a person from giving in to temptation that will lead him astray. So from here we see that you not only, from my perspective and what we learned on my end, which agrees with the Gemara, that you need that fear of heaven in order to acquire all of these beautiful traits. But says the Maharal, another aspect of the Gemara, that you also need this fear of heaven in order to preserve them. Fear of heaven is the treasure because it protects them once they're in, but it also gives them a place to go as you're acquiring them one at a time. Be'ezrat Hashem, this too will be another source of chizuk for each and every one of us to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu each and every single day as if we are expecting the salvation. So when we conduct our businesses, we conduct it with emunah. When we learn our Torah, we're learning it on a regular basis and not just randomly when we get time. And even more so, we make sure that we learn Torah with an objective, to apply it to our lives, to delve into it because everything is in it. And if there's anyone out there that's interfering with your servitude of Hashem, with you acquiring these 6 attributes that you're going to have to answer for when you go up to Shamayim, then the Rambam already gave us an answer. Run to the desert. Simply put, make it as if you live in a desert. We're in a desert. No one's next to you. All of those people interfering, go to a place that's as far as possible away from them. And attach yourself to righteous people. People that have common goal. People that have common ashkafa, ideology. People that are looking to have the right answers for those 6 questions. And therefore, they're preparing for them today. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.
אני מברך את הרבנים, רגע. אני מברך את הרבנים, הרב ירון ראובן, הרב אפרים כחלון, ראשי ארגון בעזרת השם, שהלכו בפי עליון, שעלו מעלה מעלה, יהיה להם ברכה והצלחה. הקדוש ברוך הוא ימלא משאלות ליבם לטובה ולברכה. שבכל אשר יפנו ישכילו ויצליחו. יזכו עוד לעשות כאלה וכאלה. הודיעו תורה לאדירה, אמן ואמן.
בעזרת השם רשת בכל הארץ. הוא היהודי הזה, הוא היה מיליונר, סגר את כל הביזנס, אמר אני משקיע פה בעולמה של תורה.
איפה הוא גר?
בפלורידה.
פלורידה. איפה זה פלורידה? באמריקה.
מיאמי. כן, ליד. אנחנו שם עכשיו הולכים להקים קהילה ספרדית.
חזק אותו בשמי.
קהילה ספרדית גדולה.
תעביר לו מה שבירכתי אותו.
כן, קהילה ספרדית גדולה.
כן.